In 1494, during the Siege of Naples, French troops encountered a new, lethal biological threat. They called it the French disease, known today as syphilis. This early strain of syphilis was devastatingly aggressive. Victims developed pustules from head to knees and suffered from rapid, flesh-eating decay. In many cases, the infection killed a person in a matter of months. The 15th century medical establishment was completely baffled. Without any understanding of germ theory or viable treatments, doctors could only prescribe one solution: total sexual abstinence. This map shows how quickly the disease traveled along major trade routes. We can see exactly how ineffective that mandate was, as the nodes light up across European borders, reaching as far as China and Japan by 1505. Facing a biological crisis with no pharmaceutical cure, medical thinkers realized they had to look backward. They searched the historical record for an intervention. The concept of a genital barrier existed long before the Renaissance. It was an ancient technology waiting to be weaponized against a modern global plague. The first evidence of genital coverings appears roughly 15,000 years ago. Inside the Grotte des Cambarelles caves in France, paintings depict humans wearing rudimentary covers. By 15 AD, the concept evolved in Greek mythology. According to legend, King Minos possessed toxic semen filled with serpents and scorpions. To protect his wife from this biological hazard, a goat's bladder was used as an internal barrier. There were practical applications too. In ancient Egypt, workers navigating the Nile wore oiled linen sheaths designed specifically to block waterborne parasites, preventing diseases like bilharzia. Meanwhile, Asian elites engineered rigid glans caps crafted from tortoiseshell and animal horn. Antiquity viewed these coverings as status symbols or environmental shields. The Pei established the physical foundation required to address the coming biological crisis. Enter Gabriele Falloppio, a 16th century Italian anatomist. His motivation to study the outbreak was deeply personal. His own father had been killed by the syphilis epidemic when Falloppio was 10 years old. Falloppio approached the biological crisis strictly as a mechanical problem. If the disease was transmitted through physical contact, it required a physical barrier to interrupt it. He engineered a fitted linen sheath, soaked it in a chemical astringent solution of wine and mercury to eliminate pathogens, and secured the device with a pink ribbon. In 1564, he tested this invention in a clinical trial involving 1,100 men. The results were absolute: 0 syphilis infections among the participants. When his findings were published in a treatise called De Morbo Gallico, it formally codified the device as a medically recognized intervention. Falloppio proved that mechanical prophylaxis worked. He successfully turned ancient practices into a medically proven, life-saving technology. The European elite adopted the barrier rapidly. By the 1640s, troops serving under King Charles I were using animal gut versions, which were later excavated at Dudley Castle. But there was a critical manufacturing flaw. Producing a barrier from sheep or calf intestines meant cleaning the organs, soaking them in alkaline solutions, turning them inside out, and scraping them down. It was a painstaking artisanal process. The user experience was equally cumbersome. The thick animal skin had to be soaked in water before use to soften it, and because they were so expensive to acquire, they had to be washed and reused over and over. This restricted the barrier to the status of an exclusive luxury item. The vast majority of the working-class population was left defenseless against the ongoing epidemic. It created a global stalemate. Medical science possessed the exact mechanical knowledge required to stop the plague, but lacked the material science necessary to mass-produce the cure. This public health void lasted for nearly 3 centuries, setting the stage for 1839 and a financially ruined inventor named Charles Goodyear. For hundreds of years, barrier prophylactics were crafted from animal membranes. Magnified closely, these tissues reveal a network of fibers and pores that are structurally prone to leaking and tearing. They were also expensive and difficult to wash for reuse. In 1839, American inventor Charles Goodyear began searching for a more reliable material. He focused on natural rubber, or raw cis-polyisoprene. In its natural state, the material was difficult to manage. It melted into a sticky paste in the summer heat and turned brittle enough to shatter in the winter cold. Goodyear solved this by adding sulfur to cis-polyisoprene under high heat, a process known as vulcanization. The sulfur atoms form crosslinks, bridging the long polymer chains together. These tethers prevent sliding, granting the rubber memory, the ability to return to its shape. This chemical breakthrough led to the production of the first rubber condom in 1855. While it was thick, odorous, and cumbersome compared to modern standards, it provided a level of durability that animal membranes could not match. Vulcanization shifted the condom from an artisanal luxury into a mass-manufactured tool. By creating a durable, standardized barrier, this chemistry provided the initial infrastructure for modern public health. By the 1920s, the industry moved away from milling solid rubber, using liquid latex suspensions instead. Latex is a natural emulsion consisting of microscopic polyisoprene particles suspended in water. This water-based solution eliminated highly explosive solvents like benzene, making factory floors significantly safer for workers. Manufacturers adopted a technique called cement dipping, where glass molds were submerged directly into vats of liquid latex. This process allowed for the creation of a thinner and more uniform membrane than was possible with molded solid rubber. The resulting latex barriers were highly elastic, capable of stretching up to 800% of their original size before tearing. In 1930, Fred Killian introduced the first fully automated conveyor system for production. The machine automated the dipping, the high-heat curing process, and the final rolling stages, producing millions of units with minimal labor. This high-efficiency throughput drove the cost of production down so sharply that small competitors using manual methods were forced out of business. Latex also offered superior stability. While rubber condoms often perished after 3 months, latex products remained effective for up to 5 years. This extended shelf life enabled international distribution and long-term stockpiling, allowing the product to be shipped to isolated regions worldwide. By automating production and stabilizing the material, the industry established a logistical framework that would become essential when facing a global pandemic 50 years later. In 1981, the identification of HIV introduced a pathogen with catastrophic mortality rates and no known pharmacological cure. With no vaccine available, the condom became the primary medical defense against the spread of the virus. However, this medical pivot faced significant political resistance. In Queensland, Australia, the Conservative state government reacted with moral panic rather than epidemiological concern. Authorities restricted public education and limited access to condoms, viewing the device as a symbol of deviancy instead of a life-saving tool. The failure of state health systems forced marginalized communities to realize that their survival depended on their own direct action. Activists and community groups launched their own public health campaigns, distributing condoms and safety information directly to those most at risk. Early literature, such as the 1982 Playfair brochure and the On Me, Not In Me campaigns, provided clear, community-led guidance on risk reduction. This diagram illustrates how the latex membrane functions. The cross-linked polymer network creates an impermeable wall that blocks the passage of microscopic viral particles. By obstructing all transmission pathways during intercourse, this barrier provides over 90%. Ultimately, the condom's legacy was established by marginalized groups who used a mass-produced polymer to protect themselves in the face of government inaction. Despite millions of lives saved, global condom usage declined by 6 to 15% in key demographics. The primary challenge for public health is no longer supply or logistics, but user adherence. Many cite a loss of tactile sensation as a reason for non-use, while roughly 1 to 3% of the population suffers from natural latex allergies. This matrix shows the industry's response with synthetic polymer alternatives. Polyurethane is a thin, thermally conductive plastic, but its lower elasticity leads to higher breakage. Polyisoprene provides the 800% stretch of natural latex without the allergenic proteins. While these synthetics addressed the allergy bottleneck, improving adherence further requires materials that mimic the experience of having no barrier at all. Modern research is now pivoting toward nanotechnology and bio-integrated materials, supported by significant philanthropic funding from organizations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. A primary focus is Project Geldom, which aims to replace rubber with tough hydrogels. A hydrogel is a porous, water-swollen polymer network engineered to mimic the texture and temperature of human tissue. Because these materials are inherently self-lubricating, they reduce friction and degradation issues associated with dry rubber. The porous structure also allows for the dynamic release of antiviral drugs during use, adding a layer of chemical protection to the physical barrier. Parallel research into graphene compounding involves integrating a 1-atom-thick carbon lattice into standard polymers. This creates a barrier that is thinner and more heat conductive, while remaining virtually unbreakable. The transition from artisanal sheep gut to bio-integrated hydrogels demonstrates a century of engineering materials to address a global sociological and biological crisis.